Hello again, everybody. I'm Alexander McCauley with Faces of Truth, and this episode, I'd like to discuss a topic that's being villainized in our mainstream news right now, that is nationalism. The first people to actually pioneer the philosophy of nationalism, the nation apart, those that were set apart from the rest of the world to bring the knowledge, etc., and that had specific requirements to integrate into their populations were actually the tribes of Israel. So the ancient tribes of Israel were given a law that specifically protected the right to life, liberty, and property, also giving them a hierarchy of accountability. Now, other pagan civilizations of the time were under the impression that laws were to give the nation an advantage over the people. Israel was based on the principle that all laws were to benefit the people and that the government was to protect the people's rights. If you allowed people to integrate that were of the opposite mindset, there would be corruption, and thereby causing the government to become the be all and end all of society instead of the citizen. Nowadays in the news, especially on CNN, MSNBC, and other more liberal, progressive media outlets, we keep on hearing this word, white nationalism, as if it was a bad thing. The fact is, when Israel was freed from bondage to pagan nations during the diaspora, they went north through the Caucasus Mountains, colonizing lands in Eastern Europe and Eastern Asia. These nationalist principles went with them. The fact that you had to meet certain requirements in order to be integrated into the culture, etc., etc. There were many leaders who instituted the principles of paganism with the nationalist principles of ancient Israel. One of these, which was very well known, was Adolf Hitler. Yes, he was a pagan by practice, although he was a closeting pagan who claimed to be a Catholic by denomination and also had some Jewish heritage in his ancestry. Nowadays, we refer to nationalists as white nationalists because of the Nazi movement, which was an extremely nationalist movement. However, if you're anti-nationalist, you're also anti-Semitic, which makes no sense whatsoever as far as the Nazis are concerned, on top of the fact that Hitler, being a Jew hater, had some Jew in him. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Nowadays, we find everything from white nationalists to white supremacist and bigot and so forth being used to shut people up when they're talking of freedom, liberty, the right to bear arms, not wanting to institute socialism, etc., etc. And these are basically terms that are used, I'm not going to say by the Democrats, because a lot of Democrats are basically duped into believing that conservatives and libertarians, which I don't regard myself as a pure Republican, I'm more libertarian by persuasion, but libertarians are a tad too libertine for my taste, so I'm more of a constitutionalist in my anyway, they've labeled us with these totally fine, really good labels like nationalist, that have been demonized in their literature, their presentations, their productions, etc., by connecting them with terms like white supremacist, bigot, misogynist, etc. And as this happens, good things begin to look like they are bad. Now you see where I'm going with this. They link good terms with bad in order to give you a bad taste in your mouth. Really, if you're anti-nationalist, you're anti-Semitic, because it was the Semites, the Jews, the house of Israel, which consisted of Dan, Asher, Reuben, etc., which all colonized Europe and Eastern Asia. You're proving yourself against Jewish belief and against Jews. We can't do this anymore, people. It's the talking heads of the progressive left, which is actually the regressive left, because they're trying to push us back into monarchical rule, being controlled by our executives with puppet legislatures, etc. They are trying to pull us into this tyranny that resembles monarchies of the Middle Ages, with what they call sustainable development, which isn't sustainable. This is where we get back to nationalism. President Trump has tried not to interfere in the people's decisions. he has been attempting to seal off the borders of the United States to make sure that we, as a nation, can maintain our ideals and provide for those that we do let in. He's been called a Nazi, a bigot, etc. And I have not heard one word out of the guy's mouth about color, about sex, about race, or lineage of anybody. Obviously, sometimes when someone is using that type of rhetoric against him, he shoots back, and he's called a racist for it. Nationalists are possibly the most vigilant people supporting liberty, and we can't let that be demonized in our eyes. We are all Americans. We are not divided. We should stand together against these progressive liberals who are trying to reinstate medieval monarchies again worldwide. Thank you. If you enjoyed this presentation, please like, subscribe, and share, because this information needs to get out. We need to bring the fake news, which is the mainstream news, back to reporting the news instead of manipulating our frame of mind. Thank you. Comment below if you want any more information. Thank you.